Hello student, this video lecture is prepared for the heat transfer subject, and today I will discuss the unit number 5, that is known as the heat transfer equipments. In last lecture we have already discussed the parts of shell and tube exchangers. Now we will discuss the next point, that is there are some guidelines are provided for directing the fluids. And then we classify the shell and tube exchangers, and after that one by one, that means fixed tube sheet heat exchanger, removable bundle heat exchanger. So one by one these heat exchangers we will discuss. So these are the guidelines provided for directing the fluid. That means which fluid you have to add in shell side or you have to add in a tube side. So there are some recommendations. So as the shell side exchanger is difficult to clean, least corrosive and cleanest fluid is admitted into the shell. So if you want to admit the shell side fluid here, so you have to add the clean and least corrosive fluid in that shell side. That means from this side. Okay. So here you have to add that. Then the scale forming fluids, that means some scales like water is having scale formation. So that fluids should be directed through the tubes. So you have to pass that fluid in this tube side. Okay. Then the corrosive fluid should be admitted through the tubes. Again you have to add the corrosive fluids here. Sometimes both the fluids are corrosive, then the fluid which is more corrosive should be directed through the tubes. So there are two types of fluids corrosive. One is less corrosive, another one is higher corrosive, maybe hot or cold. So higher corrosive liquids we have to add in these tubes, and less corrosive liquids we have to add from this shell side. Then sometimes we are dealing with the viscous liquid. So viscous liquid, that means the liquid which is having higher viscosity, for example oil. So that type of a fluid should be transferred in the heat exchanger on a shell side. Then high pressure fluid should be transferred in a tubes, and sometimes vapor or gas you have to transfer in this heat exchanger. At that time you should be transfer vapor and gases on shell side. So these are the some guidelines provided for directing the fluid. That means which fluid you have to add on a shell side and which fluid you have to add on tube side. Then we will discuss what is the classification or how you classify the shell and tube heat exchangers. So these are classified as fixed tube heat exchanger, floating head heat exchanger. There are two types: internal floating head and outside packing floating head. Third one is the U-tube heat exchanger. Fourth one is the reboiler or kettle type heat exchanger. It is also having two types, one with internal floating head and with U-tube. So these are the general classification of shell and tube heat exchangers, which is used in a chemical industry. And we have already know that the different parts of shell and tube heat exchangers are shell, shell cover, tube, tube sheet, channel, channel cover, nozzles, pass partition, baffles, tie rod and spacers. So in previous lectures I had discussed all these parts, and also I had shown the figures of these components. So unless and until if you don't understand these parts, you cannot understand the full heat exchanger. So first read these parts of the heat exchanger, what is the functions of each part, and then you can easily understand the different types of shell and tube heat exchangers. So here I will first start, that is known as the fixed tube sheet heat exchanger. So I will show the figure. There are two variations. So figure 5.6 is one of the type, and another one is called a also fixed tube heat exchanger with integral channel. So here if we look at this figure, so I will explain what are the different parts again. So this part is called a shell, means outside the tube, that part is called shell. So there are two nozzles are provided. Nozzles is nothing but for introduction and removal of the fluids. There are some pipe pieces are joined in this heat exchanger, that is called a nozzles. So shell side fluid, that means one fluid which is passing on shell side is added here. After giving heat or giving withdrawal of heat, it will coming in this direction. So that is called a shell side fluid outlet. And in the shell there is tie rod and baffles are provided. We have already discussed these parts. At the end of this shell there are tube sheets. So these are called a tube sheets. So these tube sheets are welded to the channel. So this is called a channel, and here there is a channel cover is provided, and there is one nozzle is provided for this side, which is called a tube side or tube fluid inlet, and this is the another nozzle which is provided for tube side fluid outlet. That means one fluid is passing through these tubes, it will come from here and that will be go from here. And shell side fluid, that means outside the tubes, one fluid is coming from here, give the heat or take the heat, and they will remove from the here. Okay, and this is called a channel cover. So channel cover is provided at the end of the heat exchanger. So what is the variation between this and this? Both are the same, but in this case the tube sheet is extended beyond the shell. So here if we look at this part, the tube sheet is extended beyond the shell. So this is the shell and this is the tube sheet. So tube sheet is extended beyond the shell, and which is act as a flange. That means flanges are used for the connection of the piping material or piping equipments. So these are the flanges, work as a flange. So these flanges is having holes. So from that holes we can add the nut bolts and tight this area or this tube sheet. And the channels cover and channel cover. So this part is called a channel and this part is called a channel cover. So these are also provided at the end of this heat exchanger. Then in this another variation, the channels may be welded with the tube sheet. So here the channels are welded, and also channels are provided with covers. So these are the covers. Okay. So in this case the tube sheet is not extended. So if we look at this part and this part, the tube sheet is not extended beyond the shell. In this case it is extended, but in this case it is not extended. So the one fluid is coming in this fluid, in this heat exchanger from here, from the outside the tube. They will remove from the here, and another fluid is coming from here. They will pass through these tubes, and after giving or taking heat, it will be removed from the here. Okay. So this type of a heat exchanger is called a fixed tube sheet exchanger. Okay. And this is the type of 1-1 shell and tube heat exchanger. 1-1, what do you mean by 1-1? There are only 1 times fluid is passes through the shell and 1 times in a tube side. So here it is passing in 1 times. Here also it is passing in 1 times. So this type of heat exchangers is called a 1-1 shell and tube heat exchanger. So this is a very basic type of a heat exchanger. And where we have to use this heat exchanger? When the shell side fluid is clean, not fouling. Fouling means it will contain some dirt. At that time you can use this fixed tube sheet exchanger. And what are the disadvantage or problem for this heat exchanger is the tube bundle cannot be removed from the shell for mechanical cleaning and the inspection of the outside of the tube. So this tube bundle can be removed in another heat exchangers, but it is not possible in this heat exchanger to remove this tube bundle. So it is the disadvantages. And why we are removing this tube bundle? The tube bundle is removed for the mechanical cleaning. So you have to clean the tubes from inside and outside, and also inspection of the tubes from outside. That means some leakage or some type of a dismelting is taking place from this tube sheet. So that sometimes by using heat, these tubes lose the contact with this tube sheet. So for that purpose also you have to check that tubes from the outside. And cleaning, why cleaning is necessary? If you use the dirt fluid, that means, or the fluid which is having some solid material, that will be deposited in the outside of the tubes or inside of the tubes. So for that purpose you have to remove or clean these tubes. Therefore you have to remove this tube bundle. Okay. So this is not possible in fixed tube sheet heat exchanger. Okay. So this is the disadvantage. So, and what is the application? If you are having the clean fluid, you can use this type of a heat exchanger. So today's lecture we have discussed the guidelines for directing the fluids. That means which type of a fluid you are having, clean, corrosive, viscous, high pressure, that will be decided by this guideline. And then we have discussed what classification of shell and tube heat exchangers, and then at the end of the lecture we have discussed the fixed tube sheet exchanger with 2 variations. So here I am concluding the lecture, and remaining heat exchangers we will discuss in the next lecture. Thank you.